Hey guys, so I have a whole bunch of changes to report. First, you'll notice my new background. I'm in my room, which I feel like I haven't recorded in here since the summer perhaps of either 16 or 17, I don't recall. But I've got my awesome blue walls, I've got a softer lighting. Ooh, I'm also breaking out a little around my chin. All that good new stuff. I'm also now using my phone to record. I upgraded to the 8, not the 10, but my iPad shattered. I'm not sure if I had an emotional moment in my turning 21 video where I talked about that. I don't remember. But I recorded that last video with my SE before retiring it to my dresser drawer and upgrading. And yeah, so gonna be using my phone camera, but it's supposed to be really awesome, so hopefully you guys don't mind. Alright, so this video is, as you'll notice from the title, about me withdrawing or my consideration to withdraw this semester. I feel like I haven't talked about school in a couple of videos, so I just want to catch you guys up. So I'm currently majoring in English with a concentration in creative writing. And originally I was going to double major in psychology and cultural anthropology with double minors in creative writing and religion. Whoa, I can still say all of that in one mouthful. Yes. So the first thing that happened was I deviated. Well, actually no. The first thing that happened is I took a anthro course, I think either my second semester of freshman year or my first semester of sophomore year. And it was so boring. It was really not as interesting as I thought it would be. And so I dropped that. I was like, I'm definitely neither majoring nor minoring in this. I then deviated from psych because of math. And I've talked about this over the course of like random videos, but just to summarize, so I took one math class as my core math class 3 times. And each time there was a different problem. The first time, like, things started off, I got to a very late start because the accessibility office, working out what I needed, them telling me what they thought I needed. And ultimately, I didn't pass that class with a C. I think I got a D. So I ultimately took an incomplete. Second time I took it was over the summer, and things were going pretty well. Like, my professor was a bit frustrating, but I had a note taker in my class who was really helpful in terms of like helping with the homework. It was online and not accessible with my screen readers. And but I failed every single test, which was weighted. They were all weighted a lot more heavily than the homework because my proctor didn't know math. And when I say don't know math, I mean he got less than and greater than mixed up, the signs. And then he I got a cheat sheet for him, but he misread it sometimes, which caused me to, not answer the problem correctly. Third time I took the class, I thought it was going well, because, everything fell into place. I had a good note taker helping with the homework. My professor was understanding. My proctor understood math. That's the other thing. I had proctors for the math exams rather than Braille because they told me like they couldn't get it or it was expensive or whatever nonsense. And I was like, all right, I can deal with the proctor. But they have to know what they're doing. But halfway through the semester, my note taker couldn't work with me anymore. She was a fellow classmate who was struggling in that class and, others. And I don't blame her for that, but it was very frustrating because I could no longer, get the additional help outside of class like that I got through the homework because I couldn't do it because it was inaccessible. And so I took it incomplete for that as well. Tried to finish the incomplete over the summer, didn't work out. And I'm still dealing with that math class. I took this class in the spring semester of 2017, and it's still not over. So I'm my professor will still let me take the final and let my grade be based off of that, and that will be a whole other video. But now that I've spent like 2 minutes discussing that, so I started this semester really badly. Over the summer, I didn't take any summer classes, and I didn't, all I did was work and, then go on vacation. And this was the first summer that I didn't do anything since, I think, sophomore year of high school because I'd been trying to graduate early. That didn't work. So I did things every summer, and even with going on vacations, I still didn't necessarily give myself too long of a break. So I started the semester thinking that things would go a lot better, that I was like well rested. And while I was well rested, I was also not motivated to do anything. Like, I did not do any work for the first couple of weeks. And I talked to my professors. I'm very good at talking my way out of things, and they were really understanding. My intro to literary studies professor, like, even after a bunch of weeks, reached out to me and was like, hey, you're not doing very well in this class. You haven't uploaded a single piece of homework, and you have to do that by this week. Didn't do that week. And like the other professor, like in Natures of Religion, he seemed really understanding, but he also wasn't like going above and beyond to reach out to me. It was like, all right, if you catch up, you catch up, and that's beautiful. I won't fail, like I'll appreciate the effort, but it's on you. And every time I thought about trying to catch up with everything, I was sort of on the verge of, I guess, like a meltdown, for lack of a better word. It was so overwhelming, like thinking about all of the weeks, all of the work that I haven't done, the work that I still had to do, and I kept sort of tossing out the idea of withdrawing, and I'd sort of bring it up to people just to see how it was received. So I think it was the first like full weekend of October, like around the 7th, I called my sister, and I was talking about being tired, and of all the people that I worried about the reaction of, it was her that I worried about the most. And she was just like, I completely understand. This is supposed to be my 4th year, and I'm not graduating until next year, hopefully no later than next year. But because of all of this, like, things being shifted around because of psychology, and I then declared the major in creative writing, but I did that maybe my junior year rather than before my junior year, and then there was a prerequisite I didn't know that I had to take for that, so I couldn't even start immediately. And and so I was, she knows all of this, and I was explaining that, like, I was really tired. And we were talking about how so many other kids, like, I know it's a tradition in, at the very least, like England and Australia, to take a year off, travel. I know other people who just take a year off just to take a break. And I know, like, the ones who take a year off, generally, like, their families can support them, the ones who go traveling, or, some people work for a year. But over here, we just keep going. Some people go on to the master's and PhD level, never taking a break. Some people do. But, I just wanted to power through. And, sister was like, I completely understand. And, like, this is supposed to be your last year, and like, there are things that I still haven't resolved. Like, I still haven't resolved the math stuff, and it was just just really overwhelming. But I talked to her, and because of how understanding she was, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to get it together. I'm really gonna try. And so the last weekend, I sat there, I started doing some work, I started getting through some of my reading, started writing stuff. And I still, like, I just felt really overwhelmed all of a sudden. And, so that's why I say that I've been on the verge of a meltdown, because, like, I've just been getting overwhelmed a lot more easily than normal. And, like, just having as much crap as I have to do that I need to catch up on, it's understandable. But I usually, like, I'm very good at shrugging things off, or sort of, like, prioritizing, and it's just like I would sit down to do the work, and I would just stop. I would just sit there, and I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't even, like, I wouldn't be on YouTube. I wouldn't do anything. And the hard thing about falling behind is, like, it seems like insurmountable. You have to catch up on the past work. You have to work on the current work. And, like, if you had done the work on the schedule that the professor intended, it wouldn't be so bad. But it just, I didn't do it on the schedule that the professor intended, and so it was. I feel like this is sort of disjointed. Like, I do have notes that I'm kind of trying to follow, but it's not really working out because I'm still going off on tangents, but, stay with me. And so there were a few times, like, thinking about all of this work, like, I started to tear up, and, like, I didn't actually sit down and cry, which I did have that point, but it was triggered by something else. Like, I don't even remember what I was doing. Maybe I was reading something, and I was just like, I tear up very easily, but I don't cry easily. And I was just like so emotionally overwhelmed. I didn't even know what to do with myself. It was like 10 p.m. on a Friday night. And then I just started thinking about so many other things. Like, I was just sitting in my room doing nothing. Like, I wasn't even doing my homework. And it spiraled, And so last weekend, like I said, I started seriously like contemplating withdrawing for the rest of the semesters. And like I said, I sometimes said it jokingly, and no one ever judged me for it. I think the thing is, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a semester off. Like, I always, when my friends are feeling tired or whatever, like, I completely understand. But I feel like I also think about it differently for myself. Like, I don't necessarily want to say I hold myself to a higher or different standard, but it's just like, for me, it's always just been school. Like, I knew that's what I was going to do. And I realized at some point that it's not necessarily me who wants to do school. Like, I love learning things. I don't necessarily love the work, but it's like I've always felt like that's what I'm supposed to do. It's always been what I've been told. Like, I have to get a degree to do whatever. And I could never see myself dropping out of school, because then I would have to tell my sister that, and that's not a thought. That's not something that I ever really I would just shut down at that prospect. Like, nope, I'm not gonna have that discussion with Nettie. Nope. And the other thing too, though, was that I've had friends who would do a semester and then they take a semester off or maybe a year off and they would go back. But I also have so many who like never went back, or they just went back this semester after like 3, 4, 5 years of not doing anything. And I never thought that, honestly, or not that I never thought, but I was very hesitant. For some of them, I definitely could see them going back. I think they also just needed breaks, needed to get their lives together. But others are just like, yeah, they're not going back. And sometimes, like, they didn't find work necessarily, and eventually they did, but, I never wanted to not be in school and not be doing anything. My finals week in May was really brutal. Like, there was one night I slept for like 3 hours, woke up, powered through the rest of the day. I had to go to class for presentations, and I had to do more papers and stuff like that, and it was really painful. And so once finals week was over, like, I just basked. Ooh, sorry, something's in my eye. I bask in the fact that I could just like sit there and read and eat and do nothing, and it was great. But then after like a week or two of that, I just started to go a little crazy. Like, I would go chill in Starbucks and like write or read or just something, because I just needed to get outside. I needed to be doing something. Like, I love the idea of being lazy, but I feel like it's more the idea. That's what it is. Or I need something to be lazy about. Like, I can't just be lazy and doing nothing, But anyway, like I said, so I didn't feel like I was here for me. See, this is the good thing about the notes. I genuinely love learning. I said that already. But last weekend, I was just sitting there thinking about the work that I have to do. And I was just like, all right, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to take the semester off. No, I won't graduate in 2020. Like, I'll probably end up being finished the fall of 2020 rather than spring of 2020. But I was just like, you know what, I need the mental break. Then I had to tackle like dorming and figuring that stuff out, and I figured that I would be out, but I wanted to double check. So I talked to them and they're like, yeah, if you withdraw, you won't be a full-time student at all, which I have to be, like, not even a part-time student. And they're like, you'd have to move out within 48 hours. We'd give you an extra few days if you needed it, but you'd be gone. And like, that would be really hard, finding someone to help me move out all of my stuff on such short notice. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to suck it up. I'm gonna have to do it. And so the reason I'm making this video is like, so even though ultimately I didn't decide to take this semester off, one, I was really considering it. Honestly, it's just the dorming at this point that's keeping me there, because I've got a lot of stuff that I'd have to move out. And then the other thing though is, I feel like other people might be like me, like realizing like, hey, I'm not in school for me, and they don't want to take that semester off for whatever reason, of fearing how someone will, fearing how they'll do, fearing what someone will say. And honestly, I've always said this, and I didn't necessarily like believe it per se for myself, but I do mean it. I feel like if school's not for you, like, then you shouldn't waste the time that you could be using to like be productive or something. But I also feel like you, at the very least, if you want to take a semester off, it's better to take a semester off and go back and get good grades than to just completely fuck up your entire semester and just get all F's and just ruin your GPA. And that's going to be harder to like bring back up, you know, like it would take more work to bring it back up than if you just taken that semester off, taking that break that you needed. And you know, so I feel like I talk about a range of things, but I haven't had like sat down and just talked about like, you know, school stuff and all of that in a while. And so I hope that someone finds this video helpful, whether it's now, 3 years from now. And like, so I mentioned all the stuff happening with psych and math and stuff like that. And while it's really frustrating, I am happy that I ultimately am focusing on English. Because I feel like I sort of pushed that to the side because so many people are like, oh, English isn't a lucrative career and yada yada yada. But I feel like if you really want it, like you can do it. Whether that's, again, not being in school and going out and getting some other career, doing something else, or if that's staying in school and if you really feel like you're going to power through, which is what I'm going to try to do. I've got the rest of this weekend to like get my shit together and finish all of my work and stuff like that, so wish me luck. Yeah, so that's that. Like, I feel like, you know, you really, though it's hard, and I still think of like my sister with some of my decisions, like you really shouldn't let someone else's opinion determine what you do, especially if you know it's not right for you. And so I think school is right for me because I do love learning and all of that, but the fact that I was considering, you know what I said about the semester, like considering staying and, you know, for no reason other than because I didn't want to tell my sister about it, like, which is absolutely silly. I'm sort of refining my motivation now, and I still feel overwhelmed by all of the work that I have to do, but I'm still going to get it done because I do have my goals. Like, I'm trying to remember that I want to study abroad in England in fall of 2019, and staying in the dorm, like keeping up that freedom of being out of the house, out of my house, you know, like just all of that. So I'm trying to remember my goals. So wish me luck. This was just a nice rambly video about my life and my issues. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope that, you know, there was some help to be gained, or, you know, some assurance or whatever. If you're also struggling at this point, this is like midterms time, and, you know, you needed to hear that somebody else was just completely effing up. Oh, other thing I forgot to mention. I feel like something else that I constantly sort of steer clear of is like talk of my GPA. Sophomore year, like midway through sophomore year, I had a 3.8. I'm now struggling to get myself back up to a 3. So I feel like that's also completely normal, and I never want to talk about it. And then I hear so many other people who are like, I have a 2.2, I have a 2.5, I have a 2 point whatever, just whatever it is, not a 3. And it's like, you know, like everybody goes to the college struggle, because I feel like so many of us aren't necessarily here, or we don't start here for the right reason. We're here because we were just told to come here. We didn't necessarily want to be here. And, you know, so like I feel like reclaiming your goals, oops, my nose is itchy now, reclaiming your goals and your reasoning for being here and all that is like so important. But also negative motivation is good motivation too. Like I said, I'm doing this so that, yes, England, but also so that I'm not stuck at home. And I feel like that's perfectly fine if that's your reason. Whatever it is, whatever gets you through whatever goal that you have, you know, like as long as you're doing something good for you. And this doesn't mean to like make sure you're doing something, like if you're doing something bad for someone else, but you know, like follow how you feel. I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna end this.